This is Marco Reus.
This is Shinji Kagawa.
This is Nuri Sahin.
Hello, this is Jadon Sancho.
And you're listening to the Yellowwallpod podcast.
Hello and welcome to episode 366 of the Yellowwallpod. I'm your host Stefan Butzko, and today we will talk about Borussia Dortmund's 4-2 defeat away to Bayern Munich, and we're once again joined by Jose Perez to preview tomorrow's Champions League return leg against Sevilla. For all that and more, joins me once again Adam Dorowski, like last week, helping out again, and I must say it's around almost 9 p.m. here in Philadelphia, so it's really late, but I had an internet outage half the day, which is why I couldn't record much earlier. Adam, how are you doing?
Football aside, doing well, but man, that match just killed me. It was just so infuriating.
Yeah, I'm a very sore loser as well, as it turns out, especially because yesterday I played a bit of football with my friend out in the sun. It was a couple of degrees warm here, and we seized that opportunity. But now my legs hurt, and I've made it like an audible groan every time I move physically today. So it's been that sort of day. But yeah, I was really not happy about how the game went. For various reasons, obviously. If you follow me on Twitter, you've seen that I tweeted out a picture of Marco Fritz, the referee, and called him Bayern's man of the match. So I feel like I was kind of backed up by Royce, Emre Can, and Edin Terzic afterwards. So because I tweeted that before I knew what they had to say, but I'm glad everyone can sort of agree on that. Kind of that feeling you just can't shake, that there may some subconscious biases, some calls, but we'll get into that in a second. First of all, Adam, I think we have to talk about obviously the lineup and how the game started, because it started rather well. It was Erling Haaland with 2 goals right away. What did you make of that start? Did you have the courage to celebrate, or were you still too fearful that it was just going to be biting Dortmund in the butt later?
Oh man, so this was a match that it came after a tough week. So I could have really used some good news, but I was going into this like, we're facing Bayern in Munich. It's just not going to happen. And then to have 2 goals like that early, and I was so thrilled to see Thorgan Hazard back in the 11, and he was looking fantastic. And Haaland finished those 2 great goals, and I wanted to be so excited, but you just know deep in the pit of your stomach, you're like, it's too early. You cannot be happy yet. You can't enjoy anything.
Was it too early with a W or with 2 O's?
Yeah, really both. And with the second minute where they scored too, I couldn't believe that. It was a different scenario for me too, because I was watching it on ABC on the TV. Usually I'm on my computer. I've got like Twitter up and everything, but I'm like, no, I'm not even going to look at Twitter. I'm just going to watch this game. Watched it with my son, and it was really interesting because he was furious. He's 13 years old. He was furious about the officiating, just absolutely so furious. And I wasn't looking at anything on Twitter, so I couldn't see everybody's reactions. So I had to play the dad/coach role of like, oh, you can't blame the officiating, even though, deep inside I'm like,
I hope you won't listen to this particular podcast episode, because there's going to be some concurrence.
Oh yeah. It's, and you just knew that Lewandowski was going to score, and then the foul before halftime. Like, if I had been told that Dortmund would have a 2-2 score at halftime before the match, I would have been happy. But heading into halftime, I think that was just the first time I posted my first "I fucking hate them" tweet, and they just kept coming, and it's so infuriating.
Yeah, I was soul crushing, especially the equalizer. I mean, if we talk about the the first Bayern goal, that's obviously even more annoying because that preceded the infamous, I guess now, Meunier, whatever square pass attempt that was. Just horrible. I mean, it can happen. I know we've all kicked the ball. We all know we can all horribly underhit it, but it's not like the Allianz Arena, some potato field. And he was in good position. All he had to do is square to Haaland, and it would have been a tap in. Tesic afterwards talked about the encouragement of players to like take the shot themselves. But honestly, if Erling Haaland is in the middle and wide open, and you just need to find him, you need to square that ball. And that's obviously a big mistake. I don't know if Dortmund going up 3-0 after 25 minutes would have meant they would have won the game, but I know for sure that Dortmund probably would have played with a bit more confidence. And then obviously when Lewandowski scored, just, I don't know, was it 25 seconds later or so on the other side? It's just so annoying. And yeah, the penalty that Bayern got in the 44th minute or so, I don't think we can really argue much there, can we? I think Dahoud really stepped on Coman's foot, and Dortmund were lucky that the referee didn't see it, like he didn't see so many things, but VAR then intervened correctly, and you absolutely can't argue there. It's just that's a silly foul, and kind of annoying that Dahoud, of all players who's been so fantastic recently, made this sort of colossal mistake.
Exactly. I felt for him. I felt like it looked to me actually at first like a good challenge too. It looked like he got the ball, but then on the replay, it just looked so obvious that this is going to be a penalty.
Well, I honestly thought it was just another dive, because Coman is someone who does that, and Bayern players in particular have like a long history of, cynical dives. So I thought the referee who was right next to it just thought the same thing. But no, that's a penalty, and obviously Lewandowski put it away now. Marvin hits the stutter step. He did not survive it. He already dove, and then Lewandowski just had to pick the other corner. It was all too easy.
Mm-hmm. I mean, but then after halftime, I thought, I was distraught in all of halftime. And then a couple minutes in, Hazard had that shot, and I thought for a split second that things were actually going to be good again. But no, that one hit was it the post or the side netting? It might have been the side netting.
Yeah.
And then like a minute later, Hitz had that spill that I thought was for sure going to be the third Bayern goal, but we lucked out of that one for a little bit. And then I got to be honest, I was shocked that Dortmund hung on as long as they did. I mean, 88th minute is when Goretzka finally got the third goal. And I mean, it was coming before then. The shots were, 27-4. So I took a look just before this to find out the last time Dortmund had conceded 27 or more shots and had 4 or fewer. Last season against Bayern, they had 1 shot in the 4-0 loss in Munich, I think that was, yeah. But you have to go back a little bit further to find the most recent time that they allowed that many shots, and it was that 11 save clean sheet by Roman Bürki, where they had Gladbach had 28 shots, and so it's been a while since Dortmund faced that many shots.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there are many things to talk about the 3-2, and it's obviously the controversy that's revolving around, and we'll get to it in a second. But if we talk about the 27 shots, I mean, first of all, the most disappointing thing above all, not only that Dortmund lost, but that they could hardly compete with Bayern over 90 minutes. That, yes, after 9 minutes they were 2-0 up, but then Bayern just ruthlessly took over, and Dortmund just had almost no spells of possession. Their counterattack was not, as Cham put it, courageous enough, because if you win the ball and you must transition forward, then that means a lot of bodies need to move, or it will just peter out, and then Dortmund step on the ball, pass it to Hitz, and he punts it, and then the ball is gone, basically. And that happened quite a lot, that Dortmund just sort of aimlessly punted the ball forward, and then turned over possession immediately. So I don't really know if I should be annoyed with Tersic's approach, because everyone knows that, Dortmund played with a 5-4-1 system for the start, and at some point they switched back to a back 4 and then back to a back 5 again. But basically having this low block defense, basically after going up to nothing, I thought that was just, waiting for Bayern to happen, because you know that Bayern can destroy teams that sit back. And you want to take advantage of their high line, but I still think you need to be more aggressive. Now, the problem obviously is that when there are spells of Dortmund pressing, that Bayern played around that as well quite expertly. And if you want to press for longer spells, and we all know that from the Klopp era, then you need to have the courage to do that, because the entire team needs to do it rather perfectly. And I don't think that Dortmund, after over 2 years of Favre football, are really capable of doing that. So at this stage right now, this team is not the team that goes to Munich and really presses them. I think that happened in a better sense actually at the Super Cup, but it's a different competition and different game, different scenario. Dortmund had other players available, and so to me, that's sort of the most disappointing thing, that, on paper, it's probably the best and second best teams going head to head, but the gap in quality, or the gulf in quality, is just so stark. It's just breathtaking how much possession Bayern had and how much dangerous possession they had. Now, I still want to sort of take the 27 shots with a pinch of salt for Bayern, because although it's such a high number, A, they I think only had 8 on target, and B, I don't remember that many Marvin Hitz saves where he really had to make monster saves or anything like that. So even though the shot number was high, I thought that Bayern overall, their output was not that efficient, minus the 2 at the end, I guess. What do you think about that? Because it sounds very high, but if you actually go through it shot by shot, how many were blocked and wayward and whatnot, I'm not that impressed anymore.
Right, yeah. 8 were on target. A total of 2.9 XG, and the post-shot XG was 3.8, which is rather high, which means that they were pretty good chances, the ones that were on target. But I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but I bet a good chunk of that is those last 2 goals that ended up going in, because, like penalty, you, I don't remember. Right? Oh, yeah, the penalty is a huge part of that, too.
Yeah, so that's basically the one positive you can take away from that. Obviously, it's kind of weird, because obviously you had Zagadou back, you had Emre Can in the back line, and next to Hummels, and everyone was a little bit out of position, and then Meunier back on the right, and you had Scholz, who had 1 game, and in front of him Hazard. And overall, I would just say that this Dortmund side was just not really up for it. And that's mostly, I guess, if you want to find blame, it's mostly down to Dortmund's lack of rotation in recent games. And, that just goes down to the form of Gio Reyna and Julian Brandt, because they have not been reliable assets for Dortmund in the past weeks, that Terzic really could have just brought them in and given players like Sancho or Guerrero or whatnot a rest. And that's really the sad part here, that, you have a 25 million euro left back, but you don't really want to play him. And Julian Brandt, I think, also costs 25 million. Don't really want to play him right now. Gio Reyna, obviously a budding talent, but he has shown that he can really deliver for Dortmund, but right now is not doing that. So, leading up to this Bayern game, Dortmund really had a lot of tough games and had to play their best players the entire time. And the lack of rotation and, the resulting injuries really led to Dortmund not being able to compete with Bayern. And, I don't want to jump ahead too far, but if you close out with a front three of Tigges, who basically played in the 4th division half a year ago, Julian Brandt, who's out of form, and Ranier, who is getting basically just a couple of garbage time minutes here and there, even though he just scored his first goal. That's nothing you can really take and throw at Bayern, who I think brought on Gnabry and a barrage of other players for Haaland and Hazard, etc., and Royce, of course. So Adam, I don't know about you, but I think that's to me been the most important disappointing thing about the game. It's not even the scoreline; it's just seeing the gulf between the two teams, how Bayern are when they are on top of their game, which they always are against Dortmund.
Right. It's this classic, I'm not mad, I'm disappointed. Like, I find it hard to find, players to point fingers at in this match, because, they took an early lead. Bayern equalized off a very unfortunate penalty, and then they held them for a very long time, and that was despite having Haaland off with an injury that was super unfortunate. And it took until the 88th minute for a very controversial goal to happen. And then the fourth goal, I think they just had the life sucked out of them from the 88th. The game was over at that point. And a huge thing, too, of course, that we have to mention is missing Guerrero and Sancho. And they are two of the best ball progressors in the Bundesliga. And just to give an example, last time I was on, I was talking about how Sancho had 14 progressive passes and 14 progressive carries against Bielefeld. Well, the entire Dortmund squad had 16 progressive passes and 12 progressive carries against Bayern. So Dahoud led the way with 4 progressive passes. Schultz was next with 2. So it's not pretty.
Yeah,
Schultz actually
friend
had
of the pod,
most
Abel
carries.
Messera, sent me the between the post passing chart on which they put on Twitter, and Nico Schultz literally no forward going passes, and he also, I think, showed me pictures of the heat maps, and Bayern were basically everyone in the field, and Dortmund hardly made it out of their own half. So it just really shows how far they were pushed back. And I think the numbers you just took there, I think, are the most important ones for Dortmund, is that going forward, they really need to be going forward with the ball. They need stints of possession. They need to relieve themselves of Bayern's pressure. And the problem is, when you have Guerrero, you have someone who can really play out of the first pressing wave that Bayern have. And with Schultz, you have someone who can hardly touch the ball without it flopping away from him another 5 meters or so. Although he had that assist, that was a really nice pass, and obviously the amazing spin ball from Dahoud across the entire field for the switch of play, that was just amazing to watch. But other than that, Dortmund didn't really play too enticing football. After that, it was just attack against defense for like a good part of 70 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, Schultz actually had 2 shot-creating actions. He's the only Dortmund player that had 2. He had the pre-assist on the second goal, and then he had the key pass to the Hazard shot. He was the one that dished it to Hazard. So that's actually kind of he actually had the second most progressive passes on the team completed, but that was unfortunately just 2. So.
Yeah,
I mean, I think Torgan Hazard looked really good. If we want to find something good to take from this, he led the squad with 26 pressures, had 4 blocked passes, and had the assist too. I think he looked good. I'm very excited to see him back in the lineup.
I think if we subtract the failed square pass by Meunier and the silly Dahoud foul, which was really unnecessary, I think overall Dortmund, given what they had, really made the most out of this game. I mean, the first 2 goals were very well crafted. Obviously, Haaland did profit from a big Boateng deflection there, but I think that would have been going in even without the deflection, to be honest. And otherwise, I don't really want to blame Dortmund too much for this loss, because Bayern are just so damn good, and especially when they play against Dortmund, they usually bring their A game, and Dortmund have tough luck that the likes of Müller and Kimmich are now all back to fully fit, and of course you had Goretzka back, and the only quote unquote weak point that Dortmund could have exploited is Niklas Süle, but even he, I think, won 2 or 3 dribbles, something like that. So it was just piling on. So in that regard, it's very annoying how good Bayern are, and you can only hope that their decline starts at some point. But if you ask me, I just fail to see how Bayern will get worse anytime soon, especially when they add Upamecano to that back line. So you tell me, Adam, where Dortmund can gain hope from that, especially if Dortmund lose more talent going forward. But I hope there are other games where Dortmund can win it again, especially at home with fans in the stands. That these games are usually a bit closer than at the Allianz. But given that Dortmund held it to a 2-2 draw for 88 minutes, I think is an achievement. But none that you can be really happy about, because in the end it's even more frustrating to lose that way than just get shellacked 6-0 or so.
Yeah, I mean, I went through the 1990s as a Red Sox fan, watching the Yankees just win over and over again. So unfortunately, I've been through all of this before, and at some point you just become desensitized to all of the Yankees or Bayern's successes, and you just find enjoyment in things that don't have to do with playing Bayern.
Yeah. But before we get to that, we do have to talk about the refereeing controversy. Obviously, there was this potential foul on Royce by Kimmich. That's something, an action that sort of started outside the box and then finished inside the box. To me, it looked pretty much like a foul. Royce, I think, when he saw the replay, he said it wasn't a foul. But I think that Kimmich clearly blocks Royce's foot there, and part of the foul does happen in the box. And my concern, or my gripe with this situation, is that the referee is not going back to the review area to take a look at it, because it is just a very close call, and it can go either way. So to me, that's something where the referee, after having looked at the hood scene, he should go back and look at that as well. Just my opinion.
I totally agree. Especially like at this point, hasn't Kimmich earned that reputation that like you need to assume that he's being dirty at this point? Like I feel like you got to do that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like it seems like every time against Dortmund, he's got some sort of dirty foul in his back pocket.
Yeah. I mean, the last time it was
he hurt himself.
He hurt himself on Haaland. But before that, he was very lucky when he stomped on Sancho's foot deliberately and only got a yellow card instead of a suspension. That was in the Super Cup a year ago. So,
right.
So yeah, these things are just adding up. And obviously the big talking point then was when Leroy Sané ran over Emre Can in midfield. And a couple of seconds later, the ball was in the net. Obviously, the DFB pointed out that you can't really review this play because Dortmund had possession in between and sort of a Nico Schulz giveaway. And I agree with that. That's not a reviewable foul if this goal happens. But I think that the referee just needs to blow the whistle instantly when a player runs over someone else from behind, especially when you're leaning forward and you're running with the ball. You can't push against the other player. First of all, you don't see this guy coming, and second of all, your center of gravity is already leaning forward, so you'll just stumble, and it doesn't look really spectacular, which is why I think a lot of these fouls are not really given. But I don't see how Sané has any chance to win the ball there, and so to me, it's a clear foul. And then obviously we can talk about how Dortmund still have ample opportunity to defend the situation, but that's besides the point for me. Because if that's a foul, then it's 30 seconds off the clock, Dortmund get a free kick, and the goal that Bayern scored never happens. So that's really what annoyed the bejesus out of me. And Marco Reus then after the game said that if this happens the other way around, it's 100% a foul, and said then when he was pressed about it, it's just how it is. And obviously he then got an angry letter the next day from the German FA that he should tone it down a little and be more in tune with the role model that a club captain should be. And I think that's just really a sniddy loaded letter, if you ask me, because the German FA, they can just go screw themselves in that case, because I think Marco Reus has every right to be upset. And even though it comes across whiny, and I think if you lose that such a dominated performance by Bayern, you probably should not be whining and complaining about refereeing situations. But I don't know. I think it's better to just give in and give up and wave the white flag. I think it's about time Dortmund players speak up about the biases and tendencies of refereeing decisions going more against Dortmund than against Bayern in these high profile games.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And it's a weird match in the respect that by the numbers and by the eye test, Bayern completely played Dortmund. But this game was decided by a refereeing error. Like that's what it comes down to. It was 2-2 at the time. So that literally decided the game, even though Bayern maybe deserved more. But, there's some Dortmund also had some chances to get that third goal as well. So it's super frustrating to see this happen time and again. And in this case, it was, Dortmund really needed this one, and it just didn't work out, and it was incredibly frustrating.
Yeah, also, I think I know where Royce is coming from, because this isn't an isolated incident, dating back from, a goal in the cup final where the ball, Hummel's header was already like 40 centimeters or so over the line and was cleared by Martinez, and it wasn't given, and then Bayern ended up winning that cup. And I don't know, there are probably 3, 4, 5 situations where Franck Ribéry could have been sent off. Xabi Alonso has gotten away with so many bookable offenses where he, in the Guardiola years probably could have and should have been sent off. And then obviously in the Champions League final, which is obviously not the German FA, I think there was an Italian referee, but nevertheless, when Dante kicked Royce literally in the stomach in the penalty area, and he was already on a yellow, and then I think it was Dante who played that ball in the 92nd minute or whenever it was, or 89th minute. Just the mass of calls, big game-defining calls that went Bayern's way and against Dortmund. Was it a year or 2 years ago when the Boateng blocked that Haaland shot with his elbow?
God. That was last year, and even when Kimmich kicked Haaland and got injured, that could have easily been a book of sending off as well. I mean, he was the last man, wasn't he?
Yeah.
It's so frustrating.
I don't know if he was the last man, but it was a fall from behind, and it was
right.
He risked Haaland's health there too. Now it was fortunate for Dortmund there was Kimmich who got injured, not Haaland, but nevertheless, it's just I think that it accumulates, and after so many years of Marco Reus having to take all these calls, and I think that the problem here isn't that this was a blatantly wrong call, as I may have put it, because I can see as a referee in this sort of game where you let this one slide, the Sané on Jan call. But the problem just is that there are so many 50-50 decisions that always go in favor for the red team. And I think there were instances where, Thomas Müller ran into Dahoud's elbow. Really, and it was called for Bayern, where I didn't think it was a foul at all. And so I see why Emre Can and Tesic all basically, and Royce of course said the same thing, and I like that they all spoke out about it despite Bayern's dominance, because it needs to be addressed, and maybe it helps the next time around that maybe Dortmund get a fortunate call, because I think they need a couple here and there. Maybe they even got fortunate with the call that where the ball looked like it touched Royce's shoulder or arm. I can't really tell. But yeah, it's just so annoying that this game then gets decided by what I think is a clear foul and should have been given to Dortmund. And I'm okay with everyone who disagrees with that sort of viewpoint. But that at this moment I got very, very aggravated. I don't know about you.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's tough because it took Emre Can out of the play too, because he's frustrated. He's yelling at the ref. So it's just, when something like that happens, they let their guard down, and the next thing you know, it's in the back of the net, and that just makes it even worse. And then the shoulders drop even more, and a fourth goal goes in, and it's just like, at that point, you go from, oh my God, they're going to pull this off, to sending your second, I really fucking hate them tweet.
Yeah, that's pretty. That sums it up pretty well. All right, so shall we move on to the Sevilla match? And I think before you and I discuss maybe Dortmund's lineup rotation, etc., we'll give it over to Jose Perez and myself with the preview. Borussia Dortmund have the chance to reach the quarterfinal of the UEFA Champions League for the first time in many years. Marco Reus said at today's news conference that he would be proud if Dortmund could achieve that, and they've laid the groundwork with a 3-2 win away to Sevilla about 2 weeks ago, and I guess they were even a little bit unlucky in the end because Luc de Jong scored a very late goal, cutting down their lead in half. But once again, I'm joined by the contributor for Between the Posts and Managing Madrid, Jose Perez at JCPerez_ on Twitter. Jose, how are you doing? And welcome to the show.
Hello, Stefan. Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me here again. As usual, I like to talk about La Liga teams. It was a very, the first leg of this game turned out, how do I put it? To me, that was the worst case scenario for Sevilla, like them suffering a lot on the counter against Dortmund. To be honest, almost any team in the world would suffer a lot against Sancho and Haaland on the counter. So it doesn't surprise me that much that it happened, but yeah, it's a bit hard to watch for a fan of Spanish football.
Yeah, I understand that completely. Now, the problem, obviously, for Sevilla is that since that Dortmund loss, including that one, they have only won 1 out of the last 5 games. They went on to beat Osasuna with 2-0 in the league, and then they had another league defeat against Barcelona. And after that, they met Barcelona again in the Copa del Rey, and they, I think, very late, basically got an equalizer on aggregate, which sent this cup tie to extra time or overtime, and Barcelona won it then in the end, which was obviously another harsh defeat after they had a 2-0 lead, and now on Saturday they lost, I guess you can call it a bit of a shock defeat, 1-2 away to Elche. So what's interesting about this is obviously before Sevilla met Dortmund, they won 9 games in a row, if I remember correctly. So, Jose, what exactly happened to Sevilla that the loss against Dortmund sort of broke their stride a little bit, or is it more about Barcelona being a very good side and that maybe being more of a factor than anything else?
Yes, so it is interesting. This has been kind of the worst week for Sevilla in their season. I do think that having to play against a side as talented as Barcelona, with all the issues that Barcelona might have and all the drama surrounding Barcelona, they still have really good players. I think that warps our perspective a bit of the situation at Sevilla, but I would still say it's bad, especially because the way they lost that Copa del Rey game against Barcelona when they had already a 2-0 lead from the first leg, and then, Barcelona successfully turned it around and ended up winning the tie in the second leg. Let's just say that Julen Lopetegui's Sevilla has had a history of competing pretty well on knockout tournaments. For example, what they did last season at the Europa League. So we expected them to be able to handle a game like this a bit better. And to be honest, we like to build a lot of narratives based on the result. It feels like they didn't handle it so badly. It's just that a few details here and there against Barcelona went wrong, and then the whole thing, and then they ended up losing that one because they missed. I think for that game, they missed the penalty. Then they get that last minute header from Piqué that tied the game at the very end. So just those little details, they've been struggling a bit lately. Then the game against Elche over the weekend was kind of Lopetegui rotating the entire team. So a lot of players who are gonna play midweek against Dortmund were rotated. So left back Acuna, midfielders Joan Jordan and Fernando. Diego Carlos was also rotated, the center back, and also forwards, people in the forward line like En-Nesyri and Suso. So a lot of starters were rotated against Elche, and that ended up in a pretty poor game for them where they lost against the side that's relegation level.
Yeah, that's obviously a luxury that Dortmund cannot really afford right now. I mean, they are obviously rotating as well, in quotation marks, but their rotation is more down to injury. It's not like Jadon Sancho or Rafael Guerreiro or Gio Reyna will come back for the Sevilla game. Now, what was sort of a problem, I guess, for Sevilla in the first leg is that they had a lot of injuries. If I am informed correctly right now, only Aleix Vidal is the only one that is out for Sevilla, unless I've missed somebody. Who is coming back for this Sevilla side in comparison to the first leg, and what kind of a difference do you expect this will make?
Yes, so for this game, they recover a few important players, mostly left back Marcos Acuna, who is a very active defensive player, and they also recover a very important forward, in this case Lucas Ocampos, who is probably their most aggressive winger. So the guy that likes to run behind defenses, the guy that likes to run at defenders and try to dribble past them. Sevilla are really lacking in those kinds of players, and Ocampos is the guy who usually does that. He was missing against Dortmund. Now that they have him back, that would work. That hopefully will improve them this time around. So those are the two biggest differences. The other two players who were injured in between these two legs, but apparently are recovering on time, are the goalie Yacine Bono, who was also a bit injured, but it seems that he'll make it to this Dortmund game, and center back Jules Koundé will also got a bit injured and will recover. It seems like he will recover on time too.
You've already talked a little bit in the previous time you've been on how Sevilla play, but now that Sevilla's backs are a bit more against the wall, how do you think they will set up?
So it's interesting because I think we will see. Sevilla know that they have to turn around this game. They are usually a pretty aggressive pressing team, and I think they will ramp it up even more this time around. It's something that, by the way, happened similarly against Barcelona last week, that Sevilla went into that game pressing even more aggressively than usual. I think a similar thing will happen here, which maybe it can help Sevilla generate more chances, but I would say that the current game state, the way this tie is playing out with Dortmund having the advantage and with Sevilla having to take the initiative and be more aggressive, that plays well to Dortmund's strengths, because I think they can afford to be a bit more passive, sit back a bit more, and just wait to hit on the counter.
Yeah, after the Bayern segment, I would say maybe that's not the best idea, but obviously Sevilla are a strong side, but they're not as good as Bayern, and they might not be able to create this same amount of pressure and dominance, and obviously will afford Dortmund to have a couple more counterattacks. Especially looking at Marco Reus, Torgan Hazard, and Erling Haaland, who, if it's not going to be a 4-2-3-1 or anything else, they're probably going to lead the line, and all three of those are obviously excellent counterattacking players, especially Hazard in that regard. It's not really much of a downgrade from Jadon Sancho, so this is sort of, I guess, how I expect this game to play out. Erling Haaland is obviously a goal machine, especially in the Champions League. How do you think Lopetegui will set up his midfield? Is it going to be Goudet and Rakitic again? Because I don't think Rakitic had a particularly good game against Dortmund last time around.
No, he didn't. So it's interesting, yes, to talk about lineup choices. So Lopetegui, again, very much a 4-3-3 guy. He rarely varies from that. So again, goalkeeper Bono will likely come back from his injury, so he will likely start. The back four, he's going to get, like, they're going to have their entire, like, their strongest back four on. So it's going to be Jesus Navas right back, Diego Carlos and Jules Koundé as the center backs. And they're going to have back Marcos Acuna for left back. Then the midfield, I know because they were rested in the weekend against Elche, I know for sure that Fernando, the holding midfielder, and Joan Jordan, the number 8, they will start. I do wonder, and this is something I was talking about with some colleagues, whether Rakitic will start or not because of what you mentioned. I don't think he's been good in the last few months, or honestly, the entire season from Rakitic has been a bit underwhelming from him. So there is an argument to start in left midfield instead of putting Rakitic, starting a pretty agile and creative Spanish midfielder called Oliver Torres, who he has been playing well. He's been very creative, doing a good job creating chances for Sevilla, and even defending, like pressing the opponent. So there's a chance, I think, that he could start. And then the forward line, I would say for sure, Youssef En-Nesyri is going to start. Very likely Suso on the right, like he did in the first leg. He's going to start too. The question will be who will be a bit the option, the third option in the forward line, because before, Papu Gomez, who also had a bad game versus Dortmund, and he, again, also an underwhelming time at Sevilla lately, maybe he will be benched, and instead, what we will see is striker Luke de Jong as the number 9, and En-Nesyri, instead of being the number 9, he's going to play on the left wing. That could be the adjustment that we could see tomorrow. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm expecting. Oh, no, now that I think about it, Suso might be benched for Ocampos because that's a duel. That's a duel, by the way, that if you're Sevilla, you want it because, to give an example, Schultz suffered a lot against Sane this weekend against Bayern. Sevilla should look for a similar situation, like try to get Ocampos to run at Schultz and try to exploit his weaknesses.
Yeah, stiff hips is a term I heard describe Schultz in that situation against Sané. I think that was Bayern's first goal, second goal, the equalizer that you're referencing. He's not the most agile defender. He's very fast and he can run forward, but if you turn him around on the spot, that tends to have a couple of problems. Now, my other question is obviously, if I remember correctly, most of the goal threat that Sevilla posed in the first leg was actually set pieces, be it free kicks or corners or something like that. Do you think in that regard it does make sense to maybe start Luke de Jong from the beginning? I mean, he certainly is a striker that knows how to punish players and teams that make individual tactical mistakes, like for example Dortmund did. I think that was Emre Can who just failed to cover him. Still not entirely sure how Dortmund conceded that goal, but it happened. Do you think just because of that, I know he's not maybe the best player if you want to press another team high, but do you think that Sevilla will maybe just look to draw a lot of fouls and then have free kicks from like the half space or so? Is that something you would integrate into an actual game plan, or do you think that's a bit too far-fetched?
I don't think it's too far-fetched. Lopetegui Sevilla are a good team playing through midfield, but a lot of the time, like in the final third, in that like final bit of attacking the opponent and getting into the box, they struggle. And a lot of the time over the last 2 years that Lopetegui has been training Sevilla, many times they have had to rely on set pieces to get the job done. So it wouldn't surprise me for this to be part of the game plan. Lately, right now that Sevilla are struggling a bit more and playing a bit more poorly, Lopetegui has also relied a bit more on Luke de Jong. So he got that that goal versus Dortmund. Then he also scored over the weekend, I think, versus Elche. So he also started against Barcelona, kind of the setup that I told you before, him as the striker, as the number 9, and then Nesiri starting kind of more as the winger. So I do think there is a chance that Lopetegui might drop Papu Gomez, who let's just say that the relationship between the coach and Papu Gomez is not working out as well. Not so much not that they're angry at each other, but it's just he doesn't know how to fit Gomez into his side. So there's a chance that instead we'll see Luke de Jong start. I think that is a possibility, and they might try to exploit, for example, set pieces like you mentioned. And as you saw in that second half versus Dortmund, they put in this Spanish midfielder, Oscar Rodriguez, who is really good at taking those kinds of set pieces. Not only did he put in the pass for De Jong, he also had this free kick that hit the post.
Yeah, that was very close. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, thank you very much for coming on. I think lastly, maybe a scoreline prediction, or at least who do you think will progress in this tie?
That's always an interesting one. So the other thing before I leave, so I would say watch out in duels. Once again, watch out that Alan versus Diego Carlos, which went very well for Alan last time, and it can still go well this time. Watch out on the other side if it happens, that Ocampos versus Schultz. I think those are kind of two key matchups to keep an eye on. That being said, I think I still see this one as a tough one for Sevilla, because they are struggling a lot scoring goals. And I think this is a game where, as I said before, the context just doesn't benefit them, because they are going to have to be more aggressive. They're going to have to press even more aggressively. And as we have already seen, as we saw in the first leg, as we saw this weekend versus Bayern, Haaland and company don't need too many chances to score. And that's the thing. Even if Sevilla dominated most of the game, even if they pressed really well and kept the ball there in the attack most of the time, and even if Dortmund were pushed back most of the time, Dortmund really just need a couple of opportunities to make a couple counterattacking opportunities, and they can get the goals. So I think it's very difficult for Sevilla. And let's see, for a scoreline prediction, I'm going to make this one kind of a draw. So let's say something like a 1-1 or 2-2, but Sevilla are not going to make it.
No, the only problem obviously is the last time was a bit upside down, in the sense that Sevilla had a really good run coming into this, and Dortmund had a poor run, and things turned on a dime. So obviously that doesn't mean much for this Champions League time. But again, Jose, thank you for coming on. If you want to plug anything, now's your chance. Go ahead.
For now, the only thing I can tell listeners is, if you want good La Liga, good tactical analysis actually of all big 5 European leagues, follow Between the Posts. Literally, that's our Twitter hashtag. So at Between the Posts, where we always have about, 10 weekly match reports every week covering games in the big 5 European leagues. It's a great way to keep up. Like, if you are not able to watch those games, you read that tactical match report, and in 5 minutes you need everything you need to know about what happened in that game tactically. So it's very useful. We have a podcast also every week where we choose one game that we talk about. This time, for example, we chose Dortmund Bayern for this weekend. And also, if you want specifically coverage of La Liga teams, at Managing Madrid, we don't just talk about Real Madrid. Every week, I kind of release an opposition analysis where I basically talk about who Real Madrid's opponent that week is. So it's always a fun little article that gives you insight about how each team in La Liga is doing. So you can also follow Managing Madrid. So at Managing Madrid, that's what it is on Twitter. And yeah, through those two websites, you can get some pretty nice content. So I hope you're interested in that, and that you can enjoy reading that.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Jose. we're back. It's still Adam Dorowski and myself, Stefan Butzko, discussing Borussia Dortmund against Sevilla. Adam, this is going to be a big one for Dortmund in the sense that reaching the quarterfinal really does mean a lot to this Dortmund team, especially considering how the Bundesliga is not panning out all that great. How excited / scared are you ahead of, or nervous? Let's say nervous. Are you ahead of tomorrow's game?
I mean, I'm nervous because we're in a good situation, but we were also in a good situation 9 minutes in on Saturday. So I'm not trying to compare the two, but man, I don't celebrate until I can celebrate. So even though Dortmund does have a goal up and a good number of away goals, I'm not totally confident yet. I mean, it's tough. And we're not going to have Sancho again, likely not going to have Guerrero. So it'll be a battle.
Yeah, definitely. The problem also is it will be a very dogged game, I think, because Dortmund are
right.
I think they're feeling their fatigue, but at the other end, they also have Haaland, who does create Champions League magic, sometimes even sort of out of nothing, and that's the one thing that really gives me hope that Dortmund will punish Sevilla for them having to attack Dortmund. And Jose just sort of mentioned that himself, that this is the likeliest outcome, that Dortmund will just make something out of their chances. Do you expect any rotation? Do you think that we'll see maybe a Julian Brandt starting, or do you think, for example, that Bellingham returns back to the starting lineup? Because I was a bit surprised that he wasn't playing against Bayern from the beginning, but then again, he also really left it all out there against Gladbach. That was really some performance by Bellingham there. He and Ben Baini in that game, they really battled very hard. So I could understand that. So I think I'm actually hoping that he's coming back to the starting 11. What are you thinking? What are the options that Terzic has left?
Yeah, I don't think that they'll do the back three again. I think that was this was like an emergency switch for facing Bayern to try to hold them back. So I could totally see Hummels and Chan in the central defense with Dahoud, Delaney, and Bellingham in a three-man midfield again. I think Hazard, Haaland, and Royce up front. So very, very little rotation. The only rotation I could possibly see beyond Bellingham coming back in would be the fullbacks. If Guerrero's available, obviously, I think ideally he would play. I think that Moret is probably going to find himself back in there. I think that even when he came on against Bayern, I see why Meunier started, but he's the experienced player against the big team. But man, Moret just looks really good right now, and I feel like he's got to start this game. He had 4 tackles in his 21 minutes. I just think that was really impressive. And I guess Marvin Hitz is going to be starting in goal because Roman Berkey is done.
Yeah, maybe that's true. Although Roman Berkey has had some really good Champions League performances, and but I think that Terzic will stick with Hitz now. On Moret, I think it was actually quite visible that in the minutes that he got, that I don't want to say it was a upgrade on Meunier, but in some sense it was. There was just a new kind of energy on the right side, and especially after Matthias really was very harsh on him, I think he has actually found some form, and Moret looks quite promising now, especially that despite him being not the tallest, not the most physical players, he's still winning a lot of physical battles and using his body well against very physical Bayern players. So I thought that was positive, and obviously, he's obviously not the best fullback ever, but his on the ball skills I think are a little bit better than Meunier's in certain situations. So if it were me, I'd probably start him over Meunier again, because he's just looking to be in better form right now, and he's a bit more dynamic, and also going forward, he does offer a little bit more.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm not sure what else to say. I'm just glad he listens to the podcast and took Matthias's statements to heart, and thought looked deep within himself and came back and really showed what he can do, because he's really put on a hell of a run since Matthias dug into him.
Yeah,
like
but
that.
I must say, when Matthias dug into him, like, there was not much there from Murray where you could draw positives from. He made blatant tactical and positional errors. But it's improved, and I think that's very nice, because the story of this Dortmund team is right now that some players like Murray and Dahoud, in the case of injuries, are stepping up, and others like Brandt and Reina sadly are not really. Right. So I'm really happy about the ones who are stepping up. I mean, especially in the case of Dahoud, because he's been around for so long and always said, I'm going to fight for my position, and I believe in myself and my abilities, etc., etc. And right now he's getting rewarded. So A, I hope he stays healthy, and B, I hope his good form continues and he can build on that, because you never know what kind of form Witzel will be when he returns from his Achilles injury, because these things take a long time, and Chaloup wasn't the fastest on the field beforehand, and Dahoud is something that's an element that Dortmund really needed. So I wonder how Sevilla will cope with him again this time, and especially if Bellingham and Delaney are around him. I think that's in general a good lineup to evade Sevilla's pressing, because as good as it is, and as good as Sevilla are, they're not as good as Bayern, and I think we saw that in the first leg, that Dortmund can handle them. I think Dortmund need to take to heart what Terzic said at today's news conference, that one good performance won't be enough. I think that was in reference to the PSG game. But I don't know. I'm even with that Bayern defeat, I'm still very positive about Dortmund's chances against Sevilla. Maybe I'm jinxing it myself here, but there are not going to be any fans in the stadium. It's not going to be that typical magic of a Dortmund Champions League night. And if you ever had the privilege to be actually in a stadium for like a quarterfinal or a round of 16 against a high-profile team, these nights just hit a little different than the average Bundesliga game. So I'm a bit sad that no fans will be there to witness this and churn on Dortmund, because I think the fans in the Champions League, they usually step up another notch and really cheer this team on even harder. So that's kind of sad, but I don't know. I think Dortmund rewarding themselves still for the turnaround they had, and reaching the quarterfinal against a beatable opponent, let's say, that should be quite delicious and make up for a lot of stuff we've seen this season. And whoever Dortmund then draw, just enjoy the ride, I guess. That's sort of my hope. I mean, obviously a quarterfinal can obviously distract from the Bundesliga, but still, you gotta take it if it's that close. Adam, how do you think actually in the recent games Dortmund have improved in comparison that should make Dortmund fans a little bit more hopeful going into the side that they will not completely choke?
I think that despite allowing so many shots against Bayern, I think just as a whole, it just feels like there's a whole bunch more defensive solidity. And I think that a lot of that comes down to the three-man midfield. They didn't have that against Bayern. I'm not saying that that's why they allowed 27 shots, but I feel like just kind of overall, that feels like it's just a more stable setup for them now. It's tough to keep tracking which formations are working, because it seems like lately with Dortmund the last couple of years, it's like I feel like under Tuchel maybe didn't change their formation quite as much. Now it's like they go to the back three last year, and it like saves the season. Now it feels like the 3-man midfield is a thing that maybe is going to turn them around if something does. I mean, I don't want to jump ahead of myself here, but it's been a pretty good run, with that formation since they've trotted it out.
Yeah, the problem is really that football teams develop and that they have certain strengths and weaknesses, and sometimes you need to make tactical tweaks, even though you have the same amount of players, but you are battling with different kind of problems. And sometimes, when Dortmund switched to the back three under Favre in that infamous Hertha win, or it was actually against Barcelona where they started doing that, but that was really Dortmund not having any means to play out at the back and progress the ball in a way to their strikers that was helpful, and the problem right now that Dortmund faces is more protecting their own back line and not allowing silly goals. And then it's a bit more of the Stöger approach, I would even say right now, that you first try to shore up the defense and stop the leak at the back, and I think Dortmund are doing this quite well right now.
I just feel like there's a player in the middle now in De Hood whose first thought is to go forward. Yeah. And that was missing for a long time.
No, definitely, but also someone with the ability to actually do it, because the passes he is playing, you need a lot of confidence, but also a lot of skill, because what he is doing is obviously not easy, and these players are actually quite hard to find, and which is why it's quite tremendous to have Dahoud play like that. I mean, in that regard, Witzel's injury was a bit of a blessing in disguise, even though I hate to say it this way. But it really helped Dortmund flourish a little bit. And I mean, I'll have this rant a million times in the future, that if you look at this particular Dortmund team at the end of the season, you will really regret why they couldn't push Bayern for a title like they are doing right now. Because, if you have players like Sancho and Haaland at your disposal, not really at least being in the conversation for a title push is a real shame, especially because the time of these extraordinary players is so limited. So that's just super annoying and frustrating to me that Dortmund are not getting their act together. So we have to look, as you said previously, at the little positives we have. And hopefully that game against Sevilla can be won. And I hope if they reach the quarterfinal against Sevilla, it gives them another push, because I think winning 3-2 away really had ignite something. I don't know about you, but I felt like something made click that night for Dortmund, and it didn't really unclick even against Bayern. So hope it makes click another time, if you will.
Right. I think that we also probably need to spend just a brief second talking about the Pokal draw too, because that's a favorable draw, which I don't want to jump ahead of myself because Kiel obviously knocked Bayern out, but there's a decent chance of a final for Dortmund if they can get through Kiel, and that anything can happen in a final, and who knows, maybe there will actually be some hardware out of this season, which I guess we didn't even think that was possible how long ago. So
yeah, I mean, if you think about it, it could possibly be that Terzic will have won more titles than coached games with fans in the stands. That would be very ironic. Obviously, we shouldn't get too far ahead of ourselves. But yes, drawing Kiel and playing them at home instead of in Kiel, I think, is also a really big help, because the pitch in Kiel, by all means, isn't all that great. And it's kind of hilarious that Bayern fell against them. But I don't know. If Dortmund arrive in the semifinal, I find it very hard to conceive that that Dortmund messed this one up and choke against Kiel. I actually watched them against Hamburg today in that 1-1 draw, and they're a good second Bundesliga side, but nothing that Dortmund really have to be scared of. And especially if Dortmund show a mature cup performance, which hopefully they will. I mean, you never know what the injury situation is and how fatigued, etc. they are from a wear and tear of a season. You know, you can't predict that, but it's going to be a very big game for Kiel, and I think they'll be a bit more impressed playing in the Bundesliga stadium than when they play at home. So I think that really helps Dortmund. So I'm saying it's basically having like one foot in the final, if that makes sense, especially playing Kiel is something that Dortmund did already I think 7 or 8 years ago. Maybe they can rehire Shinji Kagawa for that one. I think he had like an indirect free kick or so he scored in that game. Should be fun. I'm looking forward to it, honestly, and I think it's more than likely that Dortmund will meet Leipzig in the final, and at least in recent games, Dortmund have fared quite well against Leipzig, so it's not like they're going in there as the underdog.
Yeah, that's totally true. Hey, I mean, they managed to avoid Werder Bremen, although they aren't managing to avoid Finn Bartels, so we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, the funny part is obviously that they can still meet Werder Bremen in the final, and then obviously all bets are off.
Oh, the headlines that would make.
Yeah, so I think the match has been set or scheduled for the 1st of May, if I'm not mistaken. So it's still a while until that cup tie. So I'm looking forward to it. Especially it's going to be a bit of a warmer weather. Should be nice. So I'm looking forward to that one. Should be a good one. And if not, whatever. then it's so close to the end of the season. Then we can quickly move on to the next season. So Adam, I think that's a good time to knock it on the head. Unless you wanted to say anything else.
No, good time.
All right, then thank you again. Please tell our listeners where to follow you on the internet.
Oh, I probably can't get away without a prediction, though, right?
Ah, yeah. Damn it. I totally forgot that. Go ahead.
All right. It's gonna be scrappy as hell. 1-1, they'll go through.
Yeah, there was Jose's predictions as well. I'm actually a bit more positive. I think that Dortmund will win it 2-1. And it's still going to be a scrappy game, though. With that, you can follow Adam at FußballTwit. Anything else you want to plug? FBref.com is where I'm getting all these numbers, and I work for them, so full disclosure, I love it. But thanks for having me. This is really fun. All right, thank you for coming out this late in the evening, and I'll take even more time now to upload it and produce it before I rejoin my wife on the couch to watch some more television. In the meantime, you can follow me at Stefan Butzko on Twitter. You can follow all of us at Yellowwallpod on Twitter and Facebook. And if you want to read our written content, go to theyellowwall.net, subscribe to the show via iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, YouTube, Spotify, Vurbel, etc. Or, do whatever with the podcatcher you have. And in the meantime, as always, stay safe. Thank you for listening, and goodbye.